if you can start off with life in Ireland and then leading on to why you...
Well, I was born in 1931 as the last child with 11 children in it. My mother and father, we lived in the city on Garner Street in the city of Dublin. My father had one or two horses, and my mother was a dealer. She sold fish and fruit and vegetables all over the place. So we were kind of well off compared with a lot of other people living in the city at the time, because we had a house of our own with quite a bit of land around it for the horses to run in the stables, and we were able to play football and whatever. So we kept chickens and a goat and a number of horses, as I said. So as I said, we were a bit wild because being in the thing, we had to be streetwise, because otherwise, because there was nothing working, people weren't working, and around about, when I can remember sort of a fair in the growing up, around about 6 to 8 thing, and you had to watch your P's and Q's, because otherwise the chickens would be gone and the horse feed would be gone and whatever that was done. So everything had to be, you had to be on your watch, on your guard all the time. But anyway, as I said, quite streetwise, so we were able to go and traipse half of Dublin as youngsters, to see where this place was, that place was. So we were able to sort of travel to, we say, Five Lamps, the Stand, Dollymount, and on the weekend we'd load up in the horse and the trap and get down and go down to either, what is it, Portmarnock, and we go out there and we collect cockles and winkles, and we collect them by the bucket loads, and then we take them back and boil them and sell them outside the thing. So we were a bit like tinkers to a certain degree, because we were into everything, to be honest with you. My father was able to pay kids penny or tuppence for the slop of a Sunday, and put it into barrels and then sell it to the farmers for 10 bob. So we had quite a thriving little business until such time that it came to pass, and my father was a bit of a gambler. And unfortunately, he lost everything, including my mother's business, which she had a little tea shop going down in just off O'Connell Street. And he lost a lot to a bus conductor tossing 2 halfpennies. So if the bus conductor had lost, I suppose he would have been serving about 12 months or 2 years in jail. But luckily for him, he won. So then consequently we had to come over here in 1941. And me and my brother Joe was the youngest then. My brother Jim was already over, came over with my father. And sort of 6 months afterwards he came back on leave, which was the usual way that any worker could go back to Ireland after 6 months on a fortnight's leave. And then he brought me and my brother Joe over to, in consequence, to try and force my mother to come with him, to come to Birmingham. But she didn't fancy leaving, because she'd heard the stories, because this was 1941 or 42. Consequently, the bombing and whatever frightened her off. She didn't want to come. But there again, we came over. We were only there for a fortnight, and a sister of mine, Lizzie, she was married to a Dutchman, and they were down in Fleetwood, because that's where his ship was stationed. And she came back down from Fleetwood to Birmingham, seeing the plight that we were in, because we were sleeping. Me and my brother was sleeping in her clothes, waiting for the bombs to drop. So consequently, she said, that's enough, and we were back over. But after 3 months again, he came back again, 6 months after he came back again, And this time, because me and the brother, we thought it was as an adventure, leaving Ireland like on a big ship, travelling over here, and people who are over here, they're coming here for work and money. And the stories they were telling, they were getting a few, like, earning a few pounds, and they were coming back over and they were able to buy a suit or whatever. And consequently, we thought of England as like Disneyland. It was all bright and beautiful and money just fell into your hands. Well, of course, everybody knows it doesn't happen like that, but unfortunately, that's the way we thought. But when we come here, and as I said, and we arrived after a long journey on the ship, which was rough, then going down to Crewe and waiting an hour and a half at Crewe like it was I can't remember exactly what month it was, but it was cold. And then waiting on the station, and then coming down another 3 hours down into Birmingham. And when we got off, it was evening time, around about 6 or 7 o'clock. And we looked back and looked at New Street Station, which was the old facade of New Street Station where it was. And it was all peeling and grim and dirt encrusted, like with the smoke. And at that time, really, every chimney in the place, and every factory had chimneys that smoked. And it was absolutely diabolical. The glass on the roofs were all painted black, so as the blackout was still on. And consequently, we looked at that and we cried. On New Street, we absolutely cried, thinking that we had just left Dublin with the river flows and the parks were thing, and everything seemed bright. Although there wasn't a lot of money about, we had a decent enough life, and we cried because we were saying, and especially as before we eventually finish up as we were thing, when you realise there was no sweets, no sugar, we had to go attend this place to get ration books, identity cards, and consequently, like, we were pushed from pillar to post. And luckily, the elder brother had been here for a number of years and had a house, but he got another job up in London, so left the house to my father. So that's where we were in Camden Street in Birmingham 1, which is the inner city. And so we hadn't got far to go to this town, but and at that time, even tuppence or tuppence on the bus seemed an awful lot of money. So people think, like, although there's 240 pence to the pound, and then it was like, it's people had to work a hell of a lot thing for about £4 or £5 a week, and that was to keep families and everything else. So consequently, as far as I'm concerned, we left a gorgeous place, lots of food and money and thing, and we came. Here we were on ration books. You couldn't get a sweet, and then because not knowing anything, unfortunately, we had a horrible experience. That my father and us two boys sort of, well, three boys, Jim, but the brother just joined the army, and we had to gave our ration books to a person just down the road, 2-3 doors away from us, who seemed a beautiful person, but unfortunately, she done us for our rations. She, like, where people were allowed an egg here or a piece of cheese and things, it was never in. We never got nothing like that. It was, we just got the bare necessities, sort of bread, spuds, it was nearly all condensed milk half the time because sugar wasn't coming into the place. But anyway, it was a part of life that which, although we were streetwise, we hadn't reckoned on. But after that, we came through life, and I think my father had been in the British forces before he ever came over to England in the 14 War, and then all my family then was all in the army. So Louis, who was a thing, his parents had been from Holland and had to escape from Holland from that, and they escaped on one of their ships, which was called I forget it at the moment. But and consequently they were using that as a trawler because it wasn't like, you know, because being Dutch, sort of, they had to be, he wasn't exiled, but he had to be under a British captain and moved about. But they were using that as a deep sea trawler. And so we were all right for fish on occasions when he came back. And they used to bring back big halibut and whatever in the sack. And of course, he was the toast of Camden Street there when he did bring it back. But as I said, we eventually got through it. And as the wife has already stated, like, when you first come over and this thing, and I went to school here, I went to St. Peter and Paul's, just off Broad Street, to St. Peter's Place. And we were thought, as they thought I spoke funny, which I suppose I did, to them. To me, they thought very funny, because they couldn't pronounce like H's and whatever, and which annoyed me tremendously. But saying that, they thought I was stupid and I thought they were stupid. And consequently, we didn't get on very well. But around about the house and thing, in Camden Street itself, there was a number of lads, but we soon learned to respect each other after a while. And then it was just normal service until such time as I said, you got this job and that job, which wasn't very, very good. But it being at the end, becoming at the end of the war then, as I said, came over about 41, 42, and up to 45, 46, and, and things started to brighten up a little bit. But you were still, everything was still rationing. And by this time, my mother did come over in about 44 or 45. And we started to look respectable. We started to clean ourselves up, as it were. Because we were, I dare say, we were thought to be scruffy and everything else. A man going to work, because he was going to work approximately about 14 hours, you know what I mean? He'd be up at 6 o'clock in the morning and wouldn't be back until 8 o'clock at night. So, as I said, that was the keep us thing. And so consequently, me and the brother, as I said, we were a bit wild, but thank God we got through it. That's all I can say. But when it boils down to it, like when my father come over, and he had to be given a ducat to come over to say he was of good character, and before they could allow him into the country, and he had to have references from the priests and the police to be able to get a visa to come here, although he'd been in the British Army himself. To come over here, he had to have all this to get into the country. So consequently, when after I came up to 45, 46, we lived just down the road, we say, from the Mint, which is a place called the Mint, and which is a big factory, and it appeared up on the wall there, no Negroes, no Irish, no dogs need apply. That would really hurt. Because we'd been in as I said, they sent for hundreds and thousands of people by giving them the ducats and paying the fares over when they needed them. But as soon as the hostilities started to finish and they started to get back on their feet again, all of a sudden they were not wanted anymore. So consequently, we did feel bitter. I mean, we felt bitter before because they'd been in our country for 600 years, but we got through that. But now they invited us to our country, not so much me, but my father and other people, invited them to the country, and then consequently, when it came to pass, as it were, nobody wanted them anymore. So, and they were the first, the first casualties of war. That was not at war. Only the first casualties of peace. Sorry about that, but that's the way it is. Any more?
Just if you have any, like, after, how it kind of impacted, if it ever did, or...
Well, not really. There's, like, you know, as I said, no, we were what we were, and we are what we are, sort of. So consequently, as far as I'm concerned, we've lived our life. We've had it. we've worked for it, and we've had a decent enough life. But when you say that, like, you know, nobody's ever give us nothing. Because I remember when I was working out of town, I was working as a seal erector. I had to leave, to go out of town to get for a job because work became scarce eventually. And I had to leave my wife and children. And somebody told me to go to the, as at the time it was called a UAB, which is like Social Security now. And I sent my wife there to see them through the thing because I'd had to work a week in hand to get any money, plus a week. So that was a fortnight would have been without money. And the gentleman up there, when she went there, the weather was vile, and she had to wait for 4 or 5 hours before he eventually deigned to lend her £1. Just gave her a docket that she had to return that £1 on the first week's wages I sent back. Now that's in hay. You know what I mean? When you think of the days, like, you might think we're old age and decrepit and miserable about things, but when we realise that children today are given flats and given houses and prams and things like that, and they lent my wife £1, which we had to return. That to me, like, you know, everything is turned absolutely upside down, head over heels, and I don't like it. Sorry, but that's the way I like it.